Bonjour, my name is John Biscombe. I have recently been the pit drummer for the School of Rock musical performance amateur dramatics at the Lava Pavilion. This is the next video of a song within that show. It's actually the first sort of main song after the intro, which is when I climbed to the top of Mount Rock. It's very simple, this one, so very repetitive, but that's important because it gives you that opportunity to, just realised I had a drum key on my tom there when I did the last video, never mind. Very repetitive, but it's important to make sure that you are keeping that time and that it's really happening, you know, sort of beat wise, and that everyone's right into it. I mentioned in the last video, for Stick It to the Man, about sitting behind the beat, which is quite classic of sort of rock and any kind of groovy music, is that you typically don't want to be playing like a robot, like you want to be going where the beats, you know, the kick, it's like ever so slightly off. The way I explained it was if that's your kick drum pedal, just imagine if you're behind the beat that your hand goes up a little bit like that. So you've got that extra distance to travel. So the extra few milliseconds of travel effectively create that sense of being behind the beat. Not enough to feel off, like it's out of time, but enough to feel like you're kind of playing like that, laid back, you know, just a bit chilled out. Anyway, the song starts with a very straightforward, it's just a hi-hat. In the performance, again, it's a vamp, so it sits there and you play because there's dialogue going on, and you go until you get your audio cue, which is, you know, I'll be blowing out amps is the first line of one of the verses. Or if you've got an MD or a conductor, they will tell you, you know, they'll count you in 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you'll know that the next bit's coming. But that's basically, there's a few, it's not major changes, but at the beginning, it's kind of the first and the third beats are accented. So it's, so you're just sitting there kind of. Also, if you play drums in a band, you're probably more used to hitting the hi-hat with the side of the stick like that. Get that kind of heavy chick sound. But when you're doing pit drums and you're in, you know, you've got several keyboard players, guitarist, bass player, all the on stage, it pays to try and keep things as clear and crispy as possible. So, tip of the stick, top of the hat. That sound also enables you to get much quieter, because there are some bits where you want to be like that. You're just keeping time for everybody as unobtrusively as possible. So if you're sat there like chicking the thing like that, it's too much. Yeah, you've got to remember again, even in a band situation, the drums are very prominent, whereas on a stage, the drums are just one instrument amongst many. So you don't want to overdo it unless you're in a very specific moment where the drums are supposed to be overdone. Okay, so sounds like a lot for just basically hitting a hi-hat, but that's the beginning of that song. So it's dun, 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 dun. Again, it depends if you're new or old to drumming, but this kind of muscle memory motion, it's a little bit like a technique called molar, which is, imagine that your shoulder all the way down to the tip of the stick was a chain, whoops, like that. Notice that it's like a chain motion. You can go like that, but you can just do that from the elbow, wrist, you know, fingers, yeah? So, I showed it to you in Stick It to the Man as well. It's kind of like when you're coming up, it's like, up is the hit, and then down is the hit. So I'll see if I can show it to you on this, but effectively one hit, that's down. See, my hand is down, the stick's up because it's bounced off the snare. And then when I lift my arm up, I'm going to pull my fingers like that. See that? Down, up, down. And the idea, when you get that motion, very good, you can probably see it when I'm doing that. hands going like that. It's like a chain whip, like a cracking of a whip. See it the same there? See my elbow and my wrist? It's hard to tell, but that's effectively a nice, easy way to sort of, again, it's a bit like bouncing a tennis ball. You don't go like that unless you're 5 years old. You kind of, you let it come into your hand and then you throw it back down gently like that, don't you? Very similar technique, bouncing a tennis ball to bouncing sticks. It enables you to go for a very, very long time and be nice and relaxed and loose, yeah? Forever, basically. Anyway, going on to the beat, the main beat, it starts with a little feel, like a dun, 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 bow. Because there's a lot of this stuff that starts at the back end of each bar. So the bow, so it goes du, 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 bow. So it's a crotchet, sorry, a quaver before the first beat, if you see what I mean. Because if the beat's going like this, bum, 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 bow. See, it's bum, bum. So I'll play a little bit for you from that bit. It goes. So again, really important to get the hi-hat being open and closed. Again, a lot of drummers, again, depends on how skilled you are, a lot of drummers forget about the left foot and actually being able to keep the hat closed, open, tightly closed, loosely closed, and all the rest of it. So you've got that super tight, you know, very tight, to kind of open, to and also being able to go, you know, closing it tight, not being sort of slack with it. Again, hitting the top with a tip. It's much more crispier. If you do it like that, sounds quite loose, but this, much crispier. So that's really important as well, because again, you've got more musicians playing and more people listening on a stage than perhaps you've ever been used to before. So it's important that you are very precise. That doesn't mean you have to be robotic, but you have to play in a way that enables things to be quite loose and loud compared to people will hear that. It's very prominent. So notice, I'll see if I can play this slow, I don't know if I can, but I'll try and play that again, but with the hi-hat. And I'll play the next bit as well, because after it goes bum, 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 it goes bum, 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 bum. But then there's a tom bit which I'll play after. But so when it's going, when I climb to the top of Mount Rock, it's this beat and it goes bum, bum, bum. There's a lot of crash and hi-hat mixed together. So I'll try and play those bits. So you notice there it goes. This bit's all open. But the important bit there is that you're getting the pointed parts, like the kick drum and the snare. Because that's the bit that people are going to be hearing. The next part with the hi-hat and that, so when I climb to the top of Mount Rock, so it goes dun 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 bam. Notice the hi-hat opening and closing, yeah? So it's when I... Again, very tight, tightly closed. And when you hit that crash, you close the hat, right? So it's, you go, yeah, like this. Let's go. close that. Because you don't want that. That's the dirtiness you don't want. You don't want that hi-hat fizzing away as you hit the crash. It sounds like, again, like a 7-year-old playing the drummer, like an inexperienced drummer. So you want that. Really important to keep that snappy, yeah? Just before that, I'll go into the floor tom parts. Again, it's really simple, but important to make sure that you're not overdoing it. Again, the difference between just sort of playing stuff by ear and knowing exactly what is actually being played. So, for example, well, I'll play it for you very quickly. It's kick drum hits in that. So that's the first one. So what most people will do is just keep that roll in, like we stick it to the mag. It's not. It goes. So there's one in the middle where it doesn't play, and that's because you're doing this. Yeah. So you're not going. Too messy, too heavy. It's a lot of linear stuff, quite individual instruments. So it's like that. See, it hits together with the floor and the kick drum, but other than that, then it goes. So the snare and the kick drum together as well. Snare out a bit there because I'm trying to watch the video and hit the snare and I'm going hitting the edge of it instead of the middle. So I forgot to give that at the end as well. So obviously you know how to do it. Don't just go. Give it a bit of salt and pepper, yeah, you know, so it's like. So it's like, yeah, da-da-dum. Try to keep those beats down. One. With that build up before it goes into when I climb to the top of my rock, it's so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, boom. Yeah, that's how the kick drum goes. That's basically. There are a few fills in the song, but again, they're very linear, single stroke stuff. Nothing too difficult. So I'm trying to remember what all the fills are. So the first fill, when it's doing that, if you're listening to the Amazon Music version, very simple. It's basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But what you need to try and do is try and accent the right, because it mixes that stroke but with the toms as well, so the actual fill is yeah, so accent on that. Then it's quite quiet. Then yeah, with the top. Then quiet. And you want the two da da. So it's. To give it that sort of the right sort of sound. Boom, ba, ba, boom, da, da. Yeah. What are the other fills? I mean, the other fill is just. And then later on, towards the end of the song, same thing, but just differently played. So it goes. Nothing difficult about it. Just make sure that you're keeping that time and keeping it crispy. It sticks bouncing backwards and forwards and nicely even like that. Don't try and like speed up or slow down or do anything flashy. Just keep it like. The feel is quite robotic, don't try, because a lot of the time when you do a feel like that, with the toms, you tend to go from being behind the beat to being in front of the beat, you know, so you'll be going, or loose, you'll rush it, so just try and remember to keep that tempo. So it's all the way through the feel, it's just nice and tight, yeah? Yeah, okay, so that's it. Etc. And that's basically everything you really need to know about the song.